Hey folks, I apologize. I mean, when I first came out here, the rain was barely sprinkling, and then when I got in here, I turned the video camera on, boom, deluge. So I apologize. But however, I am testing out a new wireless microphone, so hopefully the rain won't be so annoying. So, but I wanted to get this video out there because I've gotten quite a few questions on my channel that I think I need to address, and it's getting close to everybody planting their seeds, and I wanted to get this done so that I'll get that information out there. Now, I had a previous video about my seed starting containers and how I don't use those trays. Well, I rarely use the trays. I mean, sometimes when I'm going to plant like 200 or so of one variety, then I'll go ahead and use those trays with the cells. But I said for the most times I don't do that. I use like yogurt cups and things. Well, I got quite a bit of heat on that, which is okay. I'm all right with that because I mean, I'm not going to change my my plan, my ideas on it because it works for me. But whatever works for you, I want you guys to do what works for you. And I wasn't criticizing people that were using them. I'm just, my whole purpose of in doing that video was so that was to kind of help people along and show them that they don't have to spend a lot of money in order to plant their seeds. And that one was free seed starting containers. So you can go back and look at that video and you'll know what I'm talking about. But anyways, I had a couple people ask me about when I start my seeds, how deep do I plant them? Now, all seeds have different planting depths. And I think also that not everybody's going to agree. Like for instance with tomatoes. Tomatoes, I always plant my seeds a ½ inch. And I think 95% of the people on the internet say a ¼ inch. So, yeah, who's right? You just use, like I say, you do what works for you. But however, I've had a lot of people say that when they plant their seeds, sometimes they, some of them will come up, some of them won't. They want to know how they can be consistent when it comes to planting their seeds. And that is a real concern. How do you know that, like a lot of video I've seen people when they go to plant their seeds, they take a pencil or whatever and they poke a hole, drop the seed in, fill the hole in. Well, doing that, you're never going to be consistent. You're never going to know how deep the actual seed is. So the way that I do it is I've come up with a plan that works perfectly for me. And let me show you what I've done. I've built a little tool. Now this little tool is my ½ inch tool. Basically this is for tomatoes and peppers and things that basically have to be a ½ inch deep. I know some people are going to tell you ¼ inch. I'm cool with that. If you plant a ¼ inch or ½ inch and either one works for you, that's great. But what I've basically done was I took a piece of ½ inch plywood and then I went and I countersinked a screw in here and then screwed a dowel onto that. Now what this fits perfectly into those cell packs, the ones that there's a bunch of cells and you put it in a tray and then you put the dome on top. Now I'm going to show how this works, and the reason why I made it like this, I kind of beveled it on the sides. It doesn't fit perfectly, but it fits in those cells pretty snug to allow me to sink to actually pack the dirt a little bit, not a lot, just to pack it down a ½ inch. And then what I do is I sprinkle my seeds on top, and then I cover with more dirt on top of it. That way I can take my seeds and just sprinkle them around inside that without having to put a hole and then 3 holes or whatever. And my head's kind of chopped off. I apologize for that. My greenhouse is, like, my camera's not really wide angle. I'm digressing. Anyways, I'll show you how this works. Now this also works with the way that I do it most of the time is with my yogurt cups and regular to-go cups and things like that. Smoothie cups and whatnot, and it works well with that. I'll show you how I do it with the cell packs first to give you an idea of how to do it, and then I'll show you how to do it with the bigger cups that I use most of the time. Alright, so I'm going to bring you in closer and I'll show you how this thing works. And I should note also that if you're doing smaller seeds, you can also just take a ¼ inch plywood or 1/8 inch piece of plywood, anything that would give you the right depth, and then just put your dowel on and you're good to go. Okay, now I'm going to show you how this works. Okay, so now here are the cell packs, and basically the way that this works is that when I fill these cell packs, now I'm not going to go over what kind of medium to use because everybody has their own opinion on that. I always use a soilless mix. I like to use a combination of peat moss or coco coir and vermiculite. Now, however, this here was just a regular old mix that I threw together and it has a little bit of compost in it. But anyways, this will work fine too. But anyways, let me show you how this works. What I do is I take this, and this fits those cells perfectly. Now, when you put your soil in here, don't push it in. Take it and then just sprinkle it on top, and then just shake it a little bit to get it kind of level. Because if you pack it down, and then when I go to push this down, it's going to be too compact. Okay, so what I do is I take this and I just barely push it. If I have to push hard, then the soil is too compact. Okay, so what I do is I just push it down, and what I do is I make sure that it's level with the tray right here, so that when I take this away, I know that's a ½ inch. Okay, so I do it to each one of these, and I just take this, barely push it down. You remember, you don't want to push too hard. Just like that, and now I've got all of them done. And then what I do is I take my seeds, sprinkle my seeds in, take more dirt or any kind of soil, whatever you're using, on top, and then just level it off, and then take this again and just tamp it just a tad, just almost the weight of this thing here, just to tamp it down. And then I go ahead and I water it from the top. However, when I do, now this would be a seed starting video, but what I do is when I do use these trays, I fill this up about 1/4 of the way or maybe 1/3 of the way, and water it from the bottom, and then wait a couple hours and let it kind of, you know, wick up. But that's how I start my seeds, by using this little tool. Now let me show you how it works with a bigger cup. Okay, so now I've got this one here. Now you're probably wondering, well, okay, I can't push this down so it's level with this. That's okay. I usually have these a little bit lower when I start, especially with my tomatoes and peppers, because what I want to do is when they start to grow, I fill in a little more dirt. So let's suppose, I'll dump a little bit of this out. Let's suppose that you're going to start it with that low. Okay, so what I do is I take this, and when I push this down, I only go to the top of the soil. And so I gauge it that way, and then I pull that out. I don't know if you can see that indentation, but that indentation right there is a ½ inch deep. Put my seeds in, throw enough soil in to level it off with the rest of this cup, and then give it a light watering, and it works exactly the same way. So there you go. That's my seed planting depth gauge, or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, that's how I gauge all of my seed depths. Now I'm going to put a link to a document that goes out to our website that shows all the most popular seeds and their seed planting depth. All right. Well, there's how I make sure that all of my seeds are planted exactly the same depth. All right. Well, thanks a lot for watching, guys. We'll catch y'all later. Be sure to stop over to growyourheirlooms.com, where we have podcasts, gardening Q&A, tips on year-round gardening, survival gardening, and current projects that are going on.